CJ Flyer back with the fire in another YouTube video. Today teaching you the top 5 methods to improve your team prestige as quickly as possible in College Football 27 Dynasty Mode. But before we get into those tips, first we have to understand how team prestige is calculated. Thanks to this year's game being on PC, and thanks to the data mining efforts done by software engineer Preston Choate, we know exactly how it is coded in College Football 27 Dynasty Mode regarding how team prestige is calculated and what school grades influence it. So in total, there are 5 school grades that are used to calculate team prestige. However, they are not all weighted evenly in this calculation. The 3 that are weighted the most, each accounting for roughly 22% of the team prestige star rating, is brand exposure, championship contender, and pro potential. The other 2 grades, which each account for a roughly 17% of the star rating, are conference prestige and program tradition. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with how each of these 5 school grades are calculated, brand exposure in short is the media coverage for your program. It's taking into account appearances and wins in national championships in the last 5 years, playoff games in the last 5 years, games of the week, national televised games, and streaming games. With national championships being very high impact in the calculation of this school grade, playoff games and games of the week being high impact, nationally televised games being medium impact, and streaming games being low impact. Next, for championship contender, not only is it looking at the current media poll rank for your school, but it's also looking at the ratio of 4 and 5 star level players to the total number of players that are currently on your roster. So this can sometimes explain why, as a smaller school, even if you are constantly ranked in the top 10, winning playoff games, winning championships, you might still have a low championship contender grade because you don't have many 4 and 5 star players on your roster. Next, the pro potential grade is the likelihood for players in each position group to be drafted. This, of course, is not just a single grade for your entire school, but rather a grade for each of the 8 position groups on your roster. This grade is calculated based on the number of draft picks you've had in the last 4 years, with the impact of first round picks being very high, second round picks being high, third round picks being medium, and 4th through 7th picks being low. Next grade is the conference prestige grade. This is the average member team prestige in your entire conference, and it's looking at the team prestiges from the previous season. And then last is the program tradition grade, which takes into account your program's all-time success, including appearances and wins in national championship games, playoff games, number of Heisman trophies won, number of conference championships appeared in and won, and number of bowl games appeared in and won. With national championships having very high impact, playoff games and Heisman winners having high impact, and conference championships and bowl games having medium impact. Okay, so now that we know the 5 school grades that we need to increase in order to increase our school's team prestige, it's time to go over the top 5 tips to improving that grade as quickly as possible. Tip number 1, of course, is very easy, very simple, very low effort. In the offseason, move your school to a more prestigious conference. This, of course, is really only going to be useful if you are a smaller school looking to move to a Power 4 conference. Although if you are a Big 12 school moving to the SEC, you will see a little bump from that as well. With that being said, I know some people don't like to do that. They want to stick to the conferences that come as is. Whether it's for immersion or just not wanting to deal with any potential glitches with custom conferences, I totally get it. And that's why with this second tip, if you are not in a Power 4 conference, what you need to do is schedule out of conference top 25 opponents, including Notre Dame, and then of course win those games, win your conference championship, and you are very likely to make the top 12 for a playoffs appearance, which is going to help boost up that brand exposure and program tradition grade. Now, it might make sense why I said to schedule top 25 opponents as a non-power conference school in order to boost the likelihood that you get ranked higher in the CFP rankings. But why did I mention Notre Dame? Well, this year in College Football 27 and in real life for the 2026 college football season, there is a new rule that Notre Dame, if they fall in the top 12, automatically get a bid into the college football playoff. And so it would be in your best interest as a non-Power 4 conference school to keep Notre Dame away from contention for the top 12, to give them as many losses as possible. And so if you are playing a solo offline dynasty, the best thing you could do is just put them on your schedule and make sure you go out there and beat them to give yourself a better odd of making the playoffs, and also give Notre Dame lesser odds to make the top 12. Likewise, if this is an online dynasty and you are the owner or commissioner looking to help put together some custom schedules, I would advise giving Notre Dame as an opponent to as many members of the online dynasty as possible, again, in an attempt to reduce the odds that Notre Dame makes the playoffs and takes a playoff spot from you or someone else that is controlling a non-Power 4 conference school. Okay, moving on. So the third tip to increasing your school's team prestige as quickly as possible involves manual player progression in the offseason. Now, this tip actually stems from the recent title update on August 6th that EA put out, and they have a note there that says that the player progression rate was improved in Dynasty Mode, but all they actually did was they took all of the rating groups amongst all of the archetypes, amongst all of the position groups, and the ones that contained the awareness rating, they made that a little bit cheaper to purchase. And with those rating groups being cheaper, it is now easier than ever to increase your player's overall rating by quickly increasing the awareness rating. Because if you didn't know, the awareness rating in College Football 27 has a huge influence on a player's overall rating. And of course, a player's overall rating also has a huge influence in getting that player drafted, which would then increase the pro potential grade, which is part of the calculating of a team prestige star rating. Now, if you're really looking to significantly boost player ratings, you would also want to avoid purchasing any physical abilities. You would want to save those coins for the awareness rating groups, as well as any other relevant rating groups to a specific archetype. For example, elusive route runners, you would want to focus on increasing elusiveness and increasing route running, because those, of course, go hand in hand with elusive route runner. There's been data analysis that's been done in the past by various other creators such as Max Plays CFB that have proven that there are certain weightings to certain ratings groups amongst various archetypes of various positions, and it's the ones that follow most closely with the archetype name that you would want to increase. So again, an example is physical route runner. Route running, of course, has a bigger influence than it would on, say, a pure blocker tight end. Now, as a side note, I'm not saying you have to completely avoid physical abilities. Of course, physical abilities have their place, especially in gameplay on the field. And of course, if you're not winning the games, well, then it's entirely worthless to have just increased these players' overall ratings and not have them be able to perform on the field for you. Because even if you are able to increase your pro potential grade significantly, not having a team that can win games, of course, is going to hurt your brand exposure, your program tradition, and your championship contender school grades, which all three of those, of course, are having an influence on how team prestige is calculated. So it's going to be a balance, but in short, I would only focus on purchasing physical abilities that you feel matter the most to you. And otherwise, if your main goal in all of this is to increase your team prestige as quickly as possible, I would only focus on increasing those ratings groups that are going to give you a higher overall and a better chance to get your players drafted. Now, the fourth tip in increasing your team prestige as quickly as possible is to recruit 2 to 3 star transfers and or players with the pro potential deal breaker. Now, why would I suggest recruiting 2 to 3 star transfer players that may never see the field? Well, if you've watched my small school rebuild method video, you would know that 2 to 3 star transfers are actually anywhere from the high 70s to mid 80s overall and are starter quality talent. And of course, if these players that you recruit during this transfer portal do happen to be mid 80s overall, depending on where your athletic facilities are at, depending on what type of coach abilities you have, what type of support staff you have, boosts applied, so on and so forth, you could potentially get them up to the upper 80s in order to get them drafted. Now, I do need to emphasize these 2 to 3 star transfers. I'm talking about players that are going into their junior or senior year. If you're looking at a 2 to 3 star freshman player, he is likely not going to be a mid 80s overall going into the next season. Again, this is just to improve that pro potential grade as quickly as possible in an attempt to improve the team prestige grade as quickly as possible. Now, the other part of this tip is recruiting players with the Pro Potential Deal Breaker. And the reason I say that is because in the latest title update on August 6th, EA made a note that said players with the Pro Potential Deal Breaker are more likely to get drafted than the ones without that deal breaker. Now, to what extent are they more likely to get drafted? I have no idea. That data mining has not been done yet to my knowledge. So we're just taking EA for their word, which should be taken with a grain of salt if I'm being honest. But I feel like I should just put that out there in case it comes down between two recruits that you're looking at and they're both similar quality talent. Maybe you want to go with the one with the Pro Potential Deal Breaker in an attempt to increase the chances of that player getting drafted. Okay, now the fifth and final tip I have to increase your team prestige as quickly as possible, and this is going to apply more to those bigger schools, is to recruit more 4- and 5-star recruits. This, of course, you may take as common sense given that the championship contender grade is calculated not only based on your current ranking in the top 25, but also the ratio of 4- and 5-star players to the total number of players on your roster. Now, I again want to give a shout out to the software engineer that did all of the data mining. His name again is Preston Choate. I'm going to leave a link to this research in the description down below. Of course, as always, if you have any questions regarding increasing your team prestige as quickly as possible, leave me a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer it. And click one of the videos on your screen now for some more College Football 27 Dynasty tutorials.